I think all of you know what has happened in Venezuela, but before that I wanted just a brief introduction of what this is and how we see Venezuela. This is part of the global class struggle. This is not just, this country in the south that happened and it's nice, what Chavez did. What does Venezuela mean for the world? And it's very important to put in the context of capitalism at a dead end, and how, when we talk about globalization is not only, the capital that has no borders and goes here and here. It is also the right wing and the reaction that are trying, and of course led by U.S. imperialism, that it's trying to take away all the gains worldwide. We see Ukraine, we see, and we're not talking about socialist country, anything that it's nationalist in terms of benefiting the people of the countries, Syria, we see it in Libya. This is what Venezuela is. This is part of the whole attack of the right and the reaction, particularly in Latin America. Why in Venezuela? Venezuela, for the people in Venezuela, it has meant, the Bolivarian Revolution has meant a whole change of living, increased quality of healthcare, education are free, and so on. I'm not going to do it. But it has meant the betterment of the life of the most excluded in Venezuela. To the region, it has meant, along with Cuba, the unity of the region and the consolidation of groups like ALBA, CELAC, Mercosur, UNASUR, and these are instances that are away from U.S. imperialism, both from the United States and Canada. This is what means for the region, and of course we think that it's the help and the solidarity that comes not only from the government but also with the people's movement. For the global, what it means for the global community. And that is very important. Venezuela has ties with China, with Iran, with Russia, and these are countries that by U.S. standards are terrorists or promoters of terrorism and so on, and who are viewed as enemies of the United States. So this is, and Venezuela has given support and solidarity to so many movements all over the world, including the Palestinians. So this is, and for the masses, for the revolutionary masses and the progressive people of the world, it has meant the resurgence of the struggle for socialism. Venezuela is not socialist, not at all, and that precisely is the problem now, because it's not a socialist country. But it has meant that when Chavez launched the Bolivarian Revolution, this dignity and sovereignty and the struggle for socialism became a really ray of hope for not only Latin America, but for all over the world. So Venezuela is so important because of all this. So what happened in December 6th? December 6th, 2/3 of the legislature was won, what is called the parliamentary elections, which in Venezuela, the parliamentary election were never, really attended, or people really went to the polls. It was more the presidential election. So, but these parliamentary elections, if you everywhere in the world, the media, the capitalist media, it was like this importance, and the right wing was always saying that they were going to win. They were claiming we're going to win, and what happened? They won. 2/3 of the legislature, that's 112 posts were won by the MUD, the Mesa de la Unidad Democrática, Democratic Unity Roundtable would be in English. And these are forces that are very varied and forces that are not united. The only unity they have is U.S. imperialism help and advocacy, and they want to destroy the revolution. That's what they want to do. They didn't have, and they still don't have, a platform. They didn't have a political platform or what they will do. They were with change. There is a lot of hoarding, and they didn't say hoarding because they were the ones who were hoarding products, but there is a lot of scarcity of products. There is the economy, high inflation, and the government doesn't know what to rule, and violence, and all this. We're going to change. That was his program, change. Who knows, Well, it might resonate here with Obama, the change platform, but at least he had a little bit more than what Mood said. But what is important is that the right wing in Venezuela was completely, because there were many forces, many of them were aided by the United States, by USAID and NED and all these right wing and state institutions. But the United States made it a task to unify these forces. That was the way that these forces were able to win. That was the way that these forces were able to be unified. So anyway, this is for 17 years, the revolutionary forces have always won. And this is the first defeat of the vote. I'm not talking about defeat of the revolution. And we have to be very, very, not only aware, but we have to be very conscious of how we talk about these elections and the implications. So I have 5 points. One is the electoral results and its significance, which I already touched on. I need to touch a little bit more. The second is the causes, internal and externals. The third is a little bit about the analysis of some of the Venezuelans and Latin American political figures. The fourth is the developments in Venezuela. What is happening since then? What is the people and the government doing? How are they dealing with this? And the fifth, it's our task in the United States. What should we be doing? So to finish the first point, which is the electoral results and its significance, they won 2/3 of the majority of the parliament. That means that they can overturn many, I'm not going to go into all the legalese and all that, but they can overturn many laws. They can call for a referendum, revocatorio, to recall referendum. They can do that, but that of course needs people's petition and so on. But they can do all that, and it is they are threatening, just like Macri in Argentina, that as soon as he won, he's turning around and well, that's another story. but they want to turn around all the missions. They want to turn about all the laws, minimum wage, workers' rights, everything. That's the aim. Their aim is it's counter-revolution. This is not opposition, and that Maduro said in his first speech. This is counter-revolution. And another thing is, like, some places, democracy won in Venezuela. Please. Democracy didn't win. And Fidel said it's like democracy didn't win in Venezuela, despite of, the transparent way electoral, because it was all work by both the internal and the external forces. Now, the causes, and this brings me to the causes. This cause, since Chavez won office, it has been a campaign from day one. Since they were not able to buy him, it turned. You know about the the coup, the oil sabotage, and continuing. But since Chavez died and Maduro took office, this campaign has really intensified viciously. And their aim is what they aim also in Cuba, to starve people, to get people so unhappy and in so much discomfort that they will rebel against Maduro. They try violence, and it didn't work. The revolutionary forces and the government were able to deal with it and put a break. But the forces inside Venezuela has been constant in every level, and including also assassination of political figures. Remember, the last one was Robert Serra, who was the youngest deputy representative in the government. He was killed in 2014 in October, a year ago. He and his compañera were killed. And this was by right-wing forces, and many others have been. About the guarimbas, the street violence, and so you already know about that, but that has been part of the whole campaign. So it's not just these last few months. So one thing that it's important is to take in consideration that this is in a way, it's a young revolution. We're talking about a revolution that has 17 years now, and that previous to that, there was what was called the Cuarta República, 40 years of neoliberal, really cruel dictatorship to which, the masses revolted, and that's how Chavez began. But this doesn't die. This doesn't finish, and those oligarchs are living in Venezuela. It's not like in Cuba. In Cuba, they left. In Venezuela, they are there. And they are more than 30% of the population. This is so significant. And it's much more than 30%. I mean, not the oligarchs, but the oligarchs and its allies and the forces behind them. They live in Venezuela, and they try, and not only they live, but they control the finances, they control the imports, they control the some of the education and health, which are not in missions. They are controlled by the right wing. They control so much that it's very difficult. It has made difficult the tarea, the task of the government to deal with this. And of course, the government has to be with the people because it's too overwhelming, the campaign inside. And these are the inside forces. Like take a lot, then the U.S. help. And I have something that is very interesting, and I want to read. This is an article. I don't know if it was in El Financiero. I don't have the name of the website, but I have it in the original. I just copied and pasted something that I wanted to read. And the article, it's called "Freedom Brews in Venezuela." And I'm going to read because it just shows how United States. Paul Bonicelli serves as, and this is the person, Paul Bonicelli is the author, and he's a professor at Regent University. His career includes a presidential appointment with Senate confirmation as assistant administrator at the USAID. United States Agency for International Development. So he goes on and says, and I'm quoting, "The democratic opposition had help from abroad." Wow, surprise. "Throughout all years, as Venezuela slipped our failed state status, the U.S. has been doing important work in supporting the democratic opposition, and it has paid off. USAID programs have helped thousands of Venezuelans, especially the younger generation, gain access to free and independent media and train them in political organizing, civil society dialogues, and defense of their human rights. Citizens activists have learned political skills in exchanges with their peers in other Latin American countries. The International Republican Institute, the National Democratic Institute, and Freedom House have been important partners in this work, among others. This is from the horse's mouth. Right there, and they have no shame. I and my colleagues in the George W. Bush administration worked for years to support the young people that make up the bulk of the Democratic opposition. Remember the students that were? My colleagues at the USAID continued to support Venezuela's democratic opposition during the Obama years, even though his White House has been less interested in upsetting dictators. So this is, and knowing that, $18 million that we know that more, even maybe more, have been used only this year in supporting, and particularly directed to the political monitoring and advice in the National Assembly. So you wonder why these parliamentary elections were so important? So that's one of the causes, right? The United States. And we know about the hoarding. I'm not going to go into all the details because we already know about that. But what were the results of this? And this I wanted to share with you from people in Venezuela, because when we talk about the opposition or the counter-revolution won, and one important part of Venezuela, which is the 23 de enero, this is the barrio, January 23rd is called. It is one of the poorest barrios, but this is the most revolutionary barrio. This is where the Cuartel de la Montaña, the mountain cuartel, headquarters are. That's where Chavez is buried, and this is like the heart of the revolution, and it lost to the opposition. It lost to the counter-revolution. Why is that? There is this this article in the BBC in Spanish, and it interviews a person, an activist from del 23 de enero, and he says, we had the punishment, we exercised the punishment vote, voto de castigo. We didn't vote for the opposition. Some abstained and some voted blank, and cited two main reasons, and it's the economic war and corruption. And he goes on saying, the government, and I'm translating that sentence, the government didn't know how to win the economic sector, the economic war to the of the private sector. They should have arrested Lorenzo Mendoza. Lorenzo Mendoza is the owner of Polar, one of the food corporations, and beer and any food stuff. When I mentioned, and Venezuela right now, and for many years less now, but still, it's based in imports. They have not developed enough infrastructure. They have relied on the oil and not built. So they are susceptible on food and basic needs, on housewares, everything, and the import which are in the hands of the oligarchs. So anything that holds the population, and that has been. So this is the people saying they should have arrested. They should have been really strict and really done war on the economic and the private sector. So meaning that this, and again, this is, I'm quoting and that's very important. This is the people talking. that they feel that the government didn't go enough. So they voted against it because they thought that there was corruption, not only in the government, but also in the PSUV, the PS, Unified, not PSUV, the Unified Socialist Party of Venezuela, PSUV, I'm sorry, but that's the PSUV. They felt that there were many people who were not Chavista. There were people who were taking advantage, people who were stealing, people who were using their position and not listening to the people. And people were really angry. At one point, one woman says, people didn't know, la gente no supo canalizar la rechera. People didn't know how to deal with their anger. The arrechera is like really be angry. So they voted against. That is why in the barrio, in the 23rd, it was voted. That's how the opposition. And I think that I got a friend from Venezuela, from Yaracuy, that I communicate through Facebook. And he, in a way, he shows why, kind of, the whole talk could be summarized in this, and this is, somebody, a working class activist. He doesn't have any posts, he doesn't have any, posts in any office in Yaracuy. He says, I think that we have to correct the revolution. I don't see it very easy because we gave them our party to the opposition. The state institution it's in their hands. Of the highest posts are in their hands. They infiltrated everything. Our mayors and governors, many of them are at their service, and some ministers, some security officials, and the worst is that the benefits of the revolution, the benefits for the people, they have administered themselves, and they have distributed it amongst themselves, and they keep the best for them and leave kind of the little migajas to the people. And they talk, and this is the sense of many people in Venezuela, that Maduro has taken a really hard job. He says he has really inherited a really very hard job and very difficult against all these currents. And all these currents, not only the opposition and the counter-revolution, but the cancer within the government and the PSUV. And then he continues and finishes, and then they utilize the same strategy that they use in Chile, right, to surrender the people by hunger and so on, making people wait in long lines to get, very essential basis and so on. So this, and he ends, and it's something that moves me. Says he said camarada, and in Venezuela, in Latin America we say compañeros. In Venezuela, the word compañero is the opposition uses. So the revolutionaries use camaradas. They never use compañero. So he said, camarada, if you were Maduro, if you were Chavez, what would you do?
Oh, really?
This is how he ends, and it's and I'm going. But this is more or less the result of all this along the United States. And when I mentioned that this is an international offensive guided, led by the United States, but used with Colombia and Spain. Spain is very important. They have met organizations from the CIA with some special organizations from Spain, inviting all the right wing and Maria Corina Machado. I call him Cochina because Maria Corina Machado, and all the right wingers of Venezuela. They have gone, and they had last year in 2014 they held a festival, youth festival, and it was really to organize the offensive against Venezuela. That was in Spain. In Colombia, we know about the border issue, how the paramilitaries, Uribe has been completely involved against Venezuela. Paramilitaries, years back during Chavez, 100 militaries were found in Miraflores that they were going to kill Chavez. This is not new development, but has been increased after Chavez's death. So, and during this election, there were several ex-presidents from the right in Latin America that were interfering in the Venezuelan elections, so much so that Tibisay Lucena, who is the head of the CNN, the National Electoral Committee, took away their badges, their permission to be observers, because they were interfering. They were telling people, they were telling the Electoral Tribunal, close the electoral booth, so it was a real interference and doubting about the transparency of the elections in Venezuela. So this has been a whole campaign, and the media campaign that has been both national and international. Now, the analysis, the third point, the analysis of Venezuelans, I mentioned a little bit of, people in Venezuela, what they feel, but also the Bolivarian Revolution is seen by all the revolutionaries in the world as our revolution. It's ours. It's the people. It's carried out in Venezuela, but everybody wants to help out, wants to give feedback and see. And from afar, it's easier to see some of the mistakes, and they have been many. They have been many. And after the, and this brings me to the fourth point, which is the developments in Venezuela. After this, once Maduro recognized and accepted the defeat, they started organizing, how to involve more people, how to make, before Chavez died, he mentioned, he had this proposal of golpe de timón, which is a change of course, because he saw, and he was, in his last meeting with the ministers, he said, this is, the PSUV and the government are doing the same thing that the Cuarta República, the ADECOS, and the other right-wing neoliberal parties were doing. They're bringing corruption, their nepotism, all the things that are inherent on capitalism, basically. That's so they saw and said, we have to strengthen. We're saying socialism. We cannot use the word socialism as an empty word, like the socialist this and the socialist that and the socialist this, and people get enriched and the people get left behind, and we're not talking with the people. So he got this as and said, which is in the Constitution and is part of the law, the establishment of communes, something, like the Soviets. That was, and there are some, but they were not developed. They were not given the strength and the resources that they needed to develop. So now with this golpe de timón, after Chavez died, it went nowhere. So all this corruption of capitalism continued and worsened, and with this electoral defeat, which in a way Maduro said, this is like a slap on the face. This is like a way to awaken people. And people, there have been a lot of demonstrations, the motorizados, which are taxi drivers and people in motorcycles, they call it the motorizado, the motorized. They held the demonstration on behalf, because they are supporting Maduro. They're saying, whatever mistakes and all that, it's not only Maduro, he's the head, but he has all these corrupted, people and institutions behind, and that we have to support him so we can deal and we can go to the path of socialism. That's what they are having. They are having many demonstrations, and now on last Tuesday there was the establishment of the National Commune Parliament. This is a very important. We don't know what's going to happen. But this is what Chavez said. The real power has to be communal problem. The problem has to be dealt with by the communes, and it's almost like a parallel government in a way. And this is it's like the Soviets. It's not yet, but that is what they are looking for. And there is I don't know if it has been done, but Maduro was going to by an enabling law, ley habilitante, make a law to have the parliament of communes, that be a law so it can shield from any kind of laws and twisted things that the right wing can do. So this is a living process. This is not like a cut deal, but this is I think the most hopeful thing, and it is tomorrow. I think tomorrow there is also Maduro started 12 presidential councils. These are councils that will go to all the places in Venezuela to talk with the people, to get ideas from the people. And to give you an idea what these councils, because it's very important, it shows what there are 12 of these presidential councils that will give feedback. There are, and presidential councils of the people's power, that's why it's called. There is a council for women, for indigenous people, for people with disability, for education, for health, for the communes, for the LGBT community, for peasants and fishers, and for the youth and for artists. These are the 12 councils, and they started meeting 2 days ago, and they end tomorrow. So all these proposals will be given to Maduro, and it's in a way, I see it as the golpe de timón, it's a change of course. Now, what will happen? How deep will we go? And this is to deepen the revolution and to the development of socialism, and they talk about the change of the economic base. And I wanted to end. That part is there is also La Coordinadora Bolivariana. This is based in a barrio in 23 de enero, in January 23rd barrio, but it's all over Venezuela. And this is the Bolivarian Coordinating Committee. And it's the most left, not ultra left, but the most militant left. And it's very good. We have contact with Juan Contreras, who I have interviewed, for articles, and I was trying to call him before, but he's like up to here, so I guess I'll get him on WhatsApp. For those of you, WhatsApp is very good to get people in Latin America. But they have a proposal, and they gave a proposal 4 days ago, and they put it publicly. And one is to dissolve the actual structure of the government, and this is directed to Maduro. And call for a government, really a truly popular and revolutionary government, with the instances that have been with the people, like the Great Patriotic Pole, the good forces of the Great Patriotic Pole, which is like a coalition of the left parties, many of the left parties, some are not, and all the base organizations that for decades have been struggling with the people. So that's they have made this and on the road to socialism. So the task for us, and I'm going to end in that, is it's not, it's for us, it's important to analyze what happens and to know. But for publicly, I think that our task, we live in the most vicious and the most voracious imperialist that it's leading everybody else. And I think that our role here is to expose the United States' role on Venezuela, the whole world, I know that, but particularly now, because now the right wing will say, and they started saying, this communal national parliament is not constitutional. I mean, they never liked the Constitution, the revolutionary Constitution. Now they are, calling for the, but they are calling the, this is unconstitutional, and the United States is doing the same thing, calling this unconstitutional. So our task here is to defend Maduro against all this and defend the people's power and their aim to be a parliamentary, a communal parliament. I think that's very important, and expose every single crime that the United States has done in Venezuela. And so I will end with, remember the Soviets say all power to the Soviets, so in Venezuela will be all power to the communes. Yes. So thank you. In December 1st, Venezuela had been trying to meet with OPEC, to OPEC in English, OPEC in English, to see if they reduce. And it hasn't to no avail. Yesterday they were meeting today, and I think it's still continuing. And we know the U.S. influence and all that is not only Saudi Arabia. It's when I was on the train today, I saw I don't know how true it is. I just saw it in one of these alerts that you get that the United States it's pending Senate approval or something. I don't know how I read, but that the United States wanted to export oil. Yes. That it was just, I haven't read the news, I just saw the alert. Yes. So the price of oil has been tremendously important because Venezuela, because it's not a diversified economy, it's like what they call economía rentista, dealing, and that's one of the corrections. That's why I wanted to start with the OPEC, because that's one of the corrections they want to do. They want to diversify the economy and develop an infrastructure and industries that they don't have to depend on the imports and also don't have to depend on oil. That is a big criticism that they themselves are doing. But at the same time, the impact of the OPEC on the oil, the Venezuela within the global as one. Going through that, the oil deals yet have not been impacted. But one of the, and remember, this is just, elections that happened the 6th of December. They are not taking office until January 5th, when there is a call for people's assembly on the street that day. We don't know. I mean, there is still a lot that can happen between now and then. But there is, I'm thinking that, that day will be already the communes parliament in office already and take over, who knows, it's, but it seems that that's the way they are going. Of course, the right, the counter-revolution wants to end all the deals. They want to end all the missions. They want to end all that, but so far it hasn't been impacted. Revolution in one country, it's, I think that is so important, and that I was also thinking on perestroika. We need to think more on the revolutions now, including the Cuban Revolution. It is a revolution. In Cuba, it's completely different. But Cuba also, I remember when Fidel, who had the difference, they say Cuba was a satellite of the Soviet Union. Cuba had a lot of criticism on the Soviet Union, including the Angola, because Fidel felt that Angola didn't give the help to Angola that they needed, and they were called by the Angolans to go there. And they say, they were tanks. This is a very revealing, I think it came last year, from Fidel. He said that when they went, the soldiers, the troops from Cuba, they found all these Soviet tanks abandoned. It was like they were so upset with the Soviet because of the abandonment of Africa. Really, basically, that's what it's. But it's very, very important. So it's and Fidel was, the battle of ideas. I don't know if you have heard the battle of ideas, that there shouldn't be one person's brain lost. That everybody has to be imbued with the battle of ideas, because that's really what will steal will steal the revolution. It's the weapons and all that is important, but it's the weapon, the ideological weapon. And I think that one of the problems also in Venezuela is that, the PSUV is less than 17 years old, because the revolution is 17 years old. It's less. So, and it was a formation. The PSUV, the United Socialist Party, it was a formation because Chavez realized that there is no party that is a vanguard of the revolution and needs a party. The revolution needed a party to lead the changes, and so that was a formation. And he criticized, for example, the Communist Party of Venezuela, because they didn't want to just get dissolved. The Communist Party. The Communist Party had a long history. And so it was a very young formation, but it didn't have, and it still doesn't have, the ideological formation that it's needed, the Marxist ideology that you need to put the revolution forward, particularly on the face of so much counter-revolution inside and outside, using the inside forces. So that makes it easier for any corruption, for any deviation from the PSUV, because the PSUV was seen as the state and the PSUV are the same, more or less. So that had a lot to do, the lack of ideological formation.